There is a peculiar truth in life, one that defies the logic of human strength. We are never as strong as we think, yet never as powerless as we feel. In moments of weakness, when the weight of existence presses upon us, we find ourselves at a crossroads. One path is despair, where we rely on our failing strength. The other is surrender, where we lean into a strength far greater than our own. Consider the nature of weakness. It is often perceived as a flaw, a failure to measure up to the world's relentless demand for self-sufficiency. Yet, what if weakness is not a defect but a design? What if the cracks in our armor are precisely where the light of God's power shines through? When we feel weak, we are unmasked before ourselves and others. Pretenses of invulnerability crumble, and we stand as we truly are: finite, fragile, and in desperate need of help. Yet it is in this vulnerability that God draws near, not to chastise but to strengthen. In surrendering to Him, we discover a paradox. His power is made perfect not in our might, but in our frailty. Imagine a tree in winter, stripped bare of its leaves, exposed to the harsh winds. To the untrained eye, it seems lifeless, yet beneath the surface, its roots grow deeper, searching for sustenance. So too, in our winters of weakness, God works within us, unseen but undeniable, fortifying our spirit and preparing us for a season of flourishing. God's strength does not merely patch up our inadequacies, it transforms them. The trials that leave us feeling weak are not punishments but tools of refinement. They strip away the unnecessary, sharpen our focus, and redirect our gaze toward Him. When we cease striving in our strength and allow God to work, we find a power that lifts us beyond what we imagined possible. When you feel weak, do not despair. Lean into the one who promises, "My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness." In that promise, weakness becomes a pathway to strength, a reminder that we were never meant to walk alone. The paradox of strength in weakness is a profound and transformative concept, one that challenges our conventional understanding of power and capability. At its heart lies the counterintuitive truth that true strength often emerges not in our moments of triumph, but in our seasons of trial and vulnerability. It is when we come face to face with our limitations, when our own efforts falter and our resources dwindle, that we begin to tap into a deeper, divine reservoir of strength that far surpasses anything we can muster on our own. Weakness, in the eyes of the world, is often synonymous with failure. It is portrayed as a deficiency to be corrected, an embarrassment to be hidden, or a flaw to be overcome. Strength, on the other hand, is celebrated as independence, resilience, and an unshakable self-sufficiency. We are taught to avoid weakness at all costs, to armor ourselves with competence, and to never admit our inadequacies. Yet this cultural narrative, though pervasive, is deeply flawed. It ignores the profound truth that human strength is finite, and it is often in our moments of greatest weakness that we encounter the infinite power of God. When we confront our weaknesses, something remarkable begins to happen. Our illusions of control and self-reliance are stripped away. The walls of pride that we have so carefully constructed crumble, and we are left with the stark reality of our humanity: we are not invincible. It is in this state of vulnerability that we are most open to God's transformative work. Paradoxically, it is in admitting our weakness that we position ourselves to receive His strength. One of the most striking aspects of this paradox is how it reshapes our perspective on trials and difficulties. What we often view as insurmountable obstacles or unfair burdens are, in fact, opportunities for growth and divine intervention. When the Apostle Paul spoke of a thorn in his flesh, he described it not as a curse, but as a means through which God's power could be revealed. "My grace is sufficient for you," God told him, for my power is made perfect in weakness. This declaration underscores a divine principle. Our weaknesses are not barriers to God's work, but avenues through which His strength is perfected. This truth also highlights a crucial distinction between human and divine strength. Human strength is often reactive, summoned in response to external pressures or challenges. It is limited by our physical, emotional, and mental capacities. Divine strength, however, is proactive and unbounded. It does not merely compensate for our shortcomings, it transcends them. God's strength is not a crutch for the weak, but a transformative power that enables us to do what we could never accomplish on our own. Consider the analogy of a broken vessel. In its damaged state, the vessel might seem useless, unable to fulfill its intended purpose. Yet when light is placed inside, the cracks allow the light to shine through, illuminating the darkness around it. Similarly, our weaknesses, those cracks in our lives, become conduits for God's light and strength. They allow His glory to be revealed in ways that would be impossible if we were flawless. Weakness has a way of fostering community and interdependence. When we acknowledge our limitations, we are more likely to seek help, not only from God but also from others. This humility breaks down barriers and builds bridges, creating a shared space where God's strength can be manifested through the love, support, and encouragement of those around us. In this sense, weakness does not isolate, it unites, reminding us that we are part of a greater whole, and that God's power is often revealed through the collective body of believers. Weakness also cultivates trust and reliance on God. When we are strong in our own eyes, we often fall into the trap of self-sufficiency, believing that we can navigate life's challenges on our own. But when we are weak, we are compelled to lean on God, to place our confidence in His wisdom, timing, and provision. This dependency is not a sign of failure, but an act of faith. It is a declaration that we trust God to be our strength, to carry us through when we cannot carry ourselves. In this light, weakness becomes a gift, albeit one that is often wrapped in hardship and pain. It is a reminder of our need for God and an invitation to experience His power in ways that we might otherwise miss. When we embrace our weaknesses and surrender them to God, we discover a strength that is not our own, a strength that is resilient, enduring, and rooted in the eternal. This paradox, though difficult to comprehend, is a cornerstone of spiritual growth, reminding us that in our weakness, God makes us strong. Divine dependency as empowerment is a concept that flips our understanding of reliance on its head. In a world that champions independence and self-reliance, dependency is often viewed as a weakness, something to be avoided or outgrown. Yet from a divine perspective, dependence on God is not a sign of frailty but a gateway to strength, wisdom, and purpose. When we depend on God, we are not merely seeking help, we are stepping into a relationship that empowers us far beyond our natural capacities. This dependency does not diminish us, it elevates us to a life shaped by His strength and guided by His wisdom. To understand divine dependency, we must first recognize the limitations of human effort. No matter how capable or resourceful we may be, our strength is finite. We grow weary, our knowledge is incomplete, and our resolve can falter. Life has a way of confronting us with challenges that exceed our abilities, whether through personal loss, overwhelming responsibilities, or the sheer unpredictability of the future. These moments reveal the truth self-reliance, though often necessary, is not enough to navigate the fullness of life's demands. Dependency on God, however, offers a source of power that transcends these limitations. When we depend on God, we tap into a strength that is inexhaustible. Unlike human power, which diminishes with exertion, God's strength is infinite and unchanging. It is a source that never runs dry, no matter how great the need. This strength is not just physical but encompasses emotional resilience, spiritual endurance, and mental clarity. It is the kind of power that allows us to face difficulties with courage and to persevere in the face of adversity. Dependency on God is therefore not about avoiding challenges but about facing them with a power that exceeds our own. Divine dependency shifts our perspective on control. Human nature often drives us to seek control over our circumstances, believing that mastery over life's variables will bring security. Yet the reality is that much of life is beyond our control. Dependency on God invites us to surrender this illusion of control and trust in His sovereignty. This surrender is not passive resignation but an active choice to rely on God's wisdom, timing, and provision. It is an acknowledgement that He sees the bigger picture, understands our needs better than we do, and works all things for our good. This kind of dependency also fosters humility, which is essential for spiritual growth. To depend on God, we must first admit that we are not sufficient in ourselves. This admission is not a confession of failure but an act of faith. It is a declaration that we trust God more than we trust our own abilities. In this humility, we create space for God to work in and through us, shaping our character and guiding our steps. Dependency on God, therefore, becomes a partnership where our surrender allows His power to manifest in our lives. Another dimension of divine dependency is the deep sense of peace it brings. When we rely solely on our own strength, we carry the weight of the world on our shoulders. This burden can lead to anxiety, fear, and exhaustion. In contrast, dependency on God allows us to rest in the assurance that we are not alone. God's promises, such as being our refuge, our provider, and our guide, become anchors for our souls. This peace is not the absence of trouble, but the presence of trouble. It enables us to face life's uncertainties with calm and confidence, knowing that God is in control. Dependency on God also unlocks the door to divine wisdom. Human understanding is limited, shaped by our experiences, biases, and finite perspective. When we depend on God, we open ourselves to His infinite wisdom, which is grounded in perfect knowledge and love. This wisdom often comes through prayer, scripture, and the quiet promptings of the Holy Spirit. It guides us to make decisions that align with God's will, even when those decisions defy conventional logic. Dependency on God, therefore, is not about abandoning reason, but about aligning our reasoning with His higher purposes. Divine dependency fosters transformation. When we lean on God, we are not only empowered to face external challenges, but also transformed from within. Our dependence shapes us into people of faith, resilience, and gratitude. It teaches us to value relationship over self-sufficiency and to prioritize God's kingdom over our own ambitions. This transformation is not instantaneous, but a process, as we learn to trust God more deeply and to draw strength from Him daily. Dependency on God is a profound empowerment. It is not a crutch for the weak, but a source of strength for those who recognize their need for something greater than themselves. This dependency is an act of faith that invites God to work in our lives, enabling us to live with courage, purpose, and a power that far exceeds our own. Transformation through trials is one of the most profound ways in which God works in our lives. While trials are often seen as interruptions to comfort or barriers to progress, they are, in truth, essential instruments in God's plan for refining and strengthening us. These challenges are not merely obstacles to endure, but opportunities for growth, reshaping, and empowerment. Trials serve as the forge in which our character is molded and our faith deepened, making us vessels fit for God's purpose. At the heart of this transformative process is the realization that trials reveal who we truly are. When life is smooth, it is easy to maintain the appearance of strength and faith. But in moments of hardship, the masks we wear are stripped away. exposing the raw and vulnerable aspects of our character. These revelations are not meant to shame us, but to serve as a starting point for growth. They highlight areas where we need God's refining touch, whether it is in our patience, humility, or trust in His plan. Trials force us to confront these weaknesses, not to leave us defeated, but to invite God to work within us. Another transformative aspect of trials is their ability to shift our priorities. In the busyness of life, it is easy to become consumed by temporal pursuits, success, comfort, and material security. However, when trials strike, they often strip away these distractions, bringing into sharp focus what truly matters. They remind us of the fleeting nature of worldly things and redirect our attention to the eternal. In this sense, trials are not merely disruptions, but divine recalibrations, aligning our hearts and minds with God's kingdom and purposes. Trials also teach us dependence on God in ways that prosperity never can. When all is well, we can fall into the illusion of self-sufficiency, believing that our own efforts and abilities are enough to sustain us. But in the face of challenges beyond our control, we are compelled to turn to God. This dependency is not a sign of weakness, but an acknowledgement of His strength. Through trials, we learn to trust in His provision, timing, and wisdom. This trust deepens our relationship with Him as we experience firsthand His faithfulness and power to sustain us. Trials cultivate resilience and endurance, qualities that are essential for fulfilling God's calling on our lives. Just as a muscle grows stronger through resistance, our spiritual strength is built through perseverance in the face of difficulty. The Apostle James captured this truth when he wrote, "Consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, whenever you face trials of many kinds, because you know that the testing of your faith produces perseverance." This perseverance is not just the ability to endure, but the capacity to grow stronger and wiser through each challenge. An often overlooked aspect of trials is their ability to foster empathy and compassion. When we walk through difficulties, we gain a deeper understanding of the struggles of others. This shared experience becomes a bridge, allowing us to connect with and minister to those who are suffering. Our trials equip us to be instruments of God's comfort and encouragement, as we can speak from a place of authenticity and understanding. In this way, our pain is not wasted but redeemed, becoming a source of hope and healing for others. Trials also serve to refine our character, much like fire refines gold. They burn away impurities such as pride, selfishness, and fear, leaving behind a character that reflects God's image more clearly. This refining process is not easy, often involving discomfort and surrender. Yet it is through this process that we are transformed, becoming people who are not only stronger but also more loving, patient, and Christ-like. God uses trials to shape us into vessels capable of carrying His purpose and glory into the world. One of the most profound transformations that trials bring is the deepening of our faith. Faith is not just belief in God's existence, but trust in His goodness, even when circumstances seem to suggest otherwise. Trials challenge us to cling to His promises, to believe in His plan, and to rest in His sovereignty. As we witness His faithfulness in the midst of hardship, our faith grows stronger, becoming an unshakable foundation for the future. This deepened faith enables us to face future trials with greater confidence and peace. Trials offer us a unique opportunity to experience God's presence in a deeper way. While it is true that God is always with us, it is often in our moments of greatest need that we become most aware of His nearness. His comfort, guidance, and strength become tangible realities, drawing us closer to Him. This intimacy is one of the greatest gifts of trials, as it reminds us that we are not alone and that God walks with us through every valley.